Welcome to MilSpouse Matters, the podcast dedicated to encouraging military spouses. I'm your host, Jen McDonald, and I was a military spouse for nearly 30 years until my husband's retirement. I'm now the mom of 4 young adults, including 1 active duty son. I also wrote the book, You Are Not Alone, Encouragement for the Heart of a Military Spouse. Through my experiences, I came to believe that we're only stronger together. Whatever life is throwing your way as a military spouse, let's talk about it. So hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode. Today, I am so excited to be talking to Erin, otherwise known as the Short Wife. You may know her from social media. She is a blogger and content creator who loves to talk about all things military life and mental health, specifically anxiety. She loves to bring humor and joy to life while being authentic and vulnerable. You can connect with Erin at theshortwife.com and at The Short Wife on Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, TikTok, and Twitter. And you can find the links to all the places in the show notes. And also be sure to sign up on her site for her free e-cookbook and newsletter. So I first came across Erin on Instagram and I loved her funny, relatable content that she shares for military spouses. And I was like, I have got to have this girl on the podcast. So welcome, Erin. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm really excited about this.
Well, if I have a feeling some listeners may already know of you, but if you would just take a moment to share a little bit of your background as a military spouse and family.
Yes. Okay. Well, my name is Erin, just like Jen said. I am a military spouse. I'm married to a Marine. We have been married for 7 years. We are expecting our first baby this August. I'm currently 15 weeks pregnant and we're very excited. We live in North Carolina and we have for 3 years now. So longest place we've been. My husband's military journey started back in 2016. We got married in Nebraska, moved shortly later to TBS, Quantico, Virginia, lived there for 6 months, moved to Pensacola, Florida so he could go to flight school. We were there for a couple of years, then moved to San Diego, California. We're there for just under a year and then moved here to North Carolina. And we have recently, since we've been in North Carolina, gone through a deployment. And last year he was gone for about 5 months for 2 different TDYs, going through WGI and different things. So we've really been in it the last few years and we're on the verge of a possible upcoming PCS. So
of course.
Yeah. So that's a little bit of the background there.
Yeah. So 7 years, you've moved 4 times already?
Yeah. We've moved. Oh, wow. Is it 4 times? Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Nebraska to Virginia. I thought I had to lay down now after realizing this. Yeah. Nebraska to Virginia, Virginia to Florida, Florida to California, California. So 4 cross country moves. And then we did move twice after we moved here because we rented a house and then we bought a house. So 5 moves, 4 cross countries.
You're going to start making a chart about this. Would start to write it down like, okay, we've lived in like 20 something houses. How many moves, And it's just crazy when and like, that's the way I have memories now too. If something happened, I'll go, now, where were we?
Where did we live?
06. Well, we were in, California. So, we'll have these little, not arguments, but like somebody in the family will say, this is when it happened. I'm like, no, because that's not where we were living.
That's exactly. I'm like, okay, that was the time we were living in Florida, not California. Yeah.
Right. It just all runs together. Well, how did you guys meet?
My husband and I met through mutual friends in college and kind of like through church group friends. We would not have met just like in passing because I was in event planning and hospitality in college and he majored in mechanical engineering. So we met through mutual friends and we had a really good, like close-knit group of friends throughout our college careers. And we always took spring break trips together. We're in each other's weddings and still keep up with each other. But that's how we met. And it's funny because at first I will tell you, I thought he was really obnoxious and annoying.
I did not like him as well.
He still is kind of annoying at times, but then he asked me to swing dance and that was basically it. So,
oh, cute. I think sometimes it's that whole opposites attract and that initial like, oh, you bug me. And then like, oh, wait.
Yeah. He bugs me a little more now that I'm pregnant, but it's all good. Sometimes I really love him. Sometimes I don't really like him, but I still love him.
I was telling Erin, my daughter is exactly the same pregnancy length as you. And she told me this week, that's so funny. You said that we were talking about something. She's like, well, I don't really like him this week. And I was like, I totally get it. Thankfully, I don't think either of them listen to the podcast on the regular. So,
oh, yeah,
it's so funny though.
Knows.
He knows. Well, since you said you were raised in Iowa. So had you had any kind of experience with the military at all before meeting your husband?
No,
So you didn't know what
no,
you were
not
getting
at all.
into.
Not on both sides of the family. I mean, obviously, like both my grandfathers served for a super short amount of time, but I really
Mhm.
have no idea what they did. And his grandfathers, one of them served again for like a short amount of time, but basically
Mhm.
there's like no one in the military in the Midwest. I mean, you have a couple people randomly, but
Yeah.
I knew jack squat,
That's
and that's it. I basically just was like, oh, we'll move around a lot, he'll deploy, and that's it.
well, for me, I was raised near a military base, but my family was not in the military at all. So we knew people that had been there a long time. And I really had no comprehension that moving was not optional. Because when he got
Uh-huh.
his first set of orders, I just said, well, just tell them not right now. Like maybe come back and, check back in a couple of years. And he goes like, babe, that's not how it works. Wait, what? I just
A couple
didn't.
years. Yeah.
It was such a foreign world to me. Well, what was your biggest surprise about military life, Erin?
Oh, the biggest surprise, a couple of things. One was I'd heard that the military community was really very supportive. And that was true. That was totally like once we moved to Virginia, they basically had this spouses orientation day, and I met a lot of my friends there, and I still keep in contact with them. So I had a really good group of core friends through TBS, and that's how we got through it because I spent more time with them than I did my own husband. So just really supportive community there with the other military wives and spouses, and just the kind of the things that they offer. So you really have a built-in community.
Mhm.
So that was a good surprise. The other thing was I was just surprised at how like all encompassing the military life is. It's not just like a regular job where someone goes
Mhm.
to their corporate job for like 9 to 5. Like it is your entire life. And I was really thrown off guard at how much it is like the controller of your life. So it just like, it's the decider of everything, where you go, where you live, timelines and everything, and just the demanding schedule.
Yeah.
So it was a really big life change once I grew up in Iowa with family for 20 years, moved straight into my brother's house to be then straight in with my husband. So moving away from everything I've ever known and then being thrown into like, my husband works 12 to 14 to 16 hours a day, and
Yeah.
that's the normal. Or he's gone for a couple weeks at a time. So, and that, military life comes first. So that was a big surprise.
Yeah. And I think people don't comprehend that if they've never been in it, because they can tell you, you're not just a military spouse. Is that all you are? And you just go, no, but you also don't understand that, like, even it comes down to, if we live on base, like they tell us when to cut our grass and how long. Like it's not even just a job. Like you said, it's so true. It's all encompassing. It affects the whole family because,
Mm-hmm.
even if you choose not to move with them, it's affected you because now you're separate. So I
Mm-hmm.
just think it's silly for somebody to say, it really shouldn't affect you when they don't have a clue.
No.
Yeah.
And it sounds so taboo, but like you really have no idea what you're getting into until you're in the lifestyle.
Oh,
And
you
it's
don't.
not something you can really explain to other people.
Mm-mm.
I mean, you can try to, but unless you're in it, you're not going to get it.
So you have been in this military life for about 7 years, and then you started a website and your social media. So I love the name The Short Wife. That caught my eye the first time. I was like, well, that's adorable, because that like tells me everything about you. Like she's
Yeah, I
funny,
know. It's
but also
I
short.
swear it's like the perfect handle for me.
Well, how did you come to start your website and your social media?
It started in October of 2016. I started the blog because previously, before we moved, I really like to write, and writing is very therapeutic for me. So I thought about starting a blog and kind of keeping people updated, because we were basically the only people that were like really off and leaving at that time, like really moving away from everybody.
So you were brand new
So,
in military life when you started the blog, right? It was
oh,
more to keep in touch with
yeah.
everybody. Okay.
Yeah, we had been married for, I don't know, like 8 months or something, 9, 10. And we'd been, living in Virginia for 3, 4 months or something. So yeah,
Hmm.
I was a baby. I first started it, and it was named a life through the journey. And
Hmm.
because it's just like journey through the military life, it was just really like to keep people updated. And, it started off really strong, and it's just kind of always been in the background there. So for really quite a few years, I just would like write here and there, right there, write this
Hmm.
post. And it would just be a lot of vulnerable posts on like how I'm feeling, what I'm going through. But I did have a lot of really good feedback on, I did create some like really vulnerable posts about how I was doing mentally, and just like the struggles of military life and being alone so much. And I got a lot of really good feedback about, people being supportive and, thanking me for that. So that's how that started. But I didn't really incorporate this whole like Instagram content creator life until, I don't know, mid 2019 ish. And I've always been on Instagram and just kind of been there, but I started to really pursue it. Yeah. When we moved to California in middle of 2019. And that's when I changed my Instagram handle from, it just was my name, to the short wife. And that is all encompassing. So every time now I'm like the short wife, the short mom, the short chef, like the short everything.
It'll just go on forever.
Yeah.
The short grandma.
Yep.
That is so brilliant because you can just evolve it. It doesn't have anything to do with military life or anything else you're doing.
No, it's
add it to
like
anything.
The perfect brain hand. Yeah. It's great. And people were like, when I first was changing it, people just loved that name and it was hilarious. And I was like, this is me. This is who I am. I'm the short wife. So.
Well, what's been the response as far as, have you had any issues with active duty pushback or any kind of response from people that or do they not even know that this exists?
Oh, most people know it exists. Everyone from my hometown, they actually love it. And
oh, good.
I've never really been afraid of what people think. I mean, you always kind of have that in the back of your mind, but it really started to take off once I posted openly about my mental health journey and opening up about asking for help for the first time and for my anxiety and taking medication and seeing therapy or going to a therapist. And that's when it really started to kind of explode. I don't have a huge following by any means. I mean, around 7,500 people, but that's when it kind of started to take off. And I started doing a little bit of brand partnerships, but I really had almost nothing but positive feedback from everything that I was posting. And I think the last time I was home last year, I was walking down my street and one of my neighbors was like, is that the short wife, the real screen, the TikTok video maker? And he was like, we love everything you make. And they just think it's hilarious. And they're like, she's perfect for this. She has such a bubbly personality. So
you found your niche.
Yes, I've really had a little bit, but nothing that's gonna deter me away from it. And
there's always going to be trolls, right?
Yeah. And I really still haven't had too many. I mean, I've had a couple of videos go viral and there's a couple of random comments and I'm like, whatever. So not really.
Good. Well, I showed my daughter, you did a video recently with the song Popular where you're, it's the first grandbaby on one side. It's the first grandbaby in a while. The other side, she goes, that's exactly us. Cause it's the first grandbaby on her husband's side. And then our granddaughter is 6. So it's the first one in quite a while. And so I was like, this child, and it's a girl.
Yes. Oh, yep. It's the exact same thing.
I'm telling you. I need to connect you guys.
Yes. My entire husband's family, they're so excited. And so is my own family too, because I'm the baby in my family. So the baby is having a baby.
Yeah.
And they're all my older siblings. They're done having kids. It's like I said, it's been 7 years since there's been a grandbaby. So they are super stoked to just spoil this.
So popular.
Yeah. And it's number 10 on my side. So I have 9 nieces and nephews.
Oh, so she'll be so catered to. Oh my goodness.
I know. It's going to be great.
It's going to be awesome. Well, I really love that you're so open about your journey with anxiety. Would you like to share a little bit of your story and how you found help? Just kind of, tell us all about that because I know it will help so many other spouses.
Yeah, it's really been a big turning point. A little bit of background. I've always kind of struggled with anxiety, kind of a fearful mindset and some panic attacks when I was younger. I didn't really know it was that when I was younger. And I didn't know I was titled or named as anxiety till I was probably in my early 20s. And as soon as I moved out of my parents' house and went to Nebraska, I really started to have a lot of panic attacks and just really severe anxiety, a lot of heart palpitations and just freaking out. Lots of anxiety. And it was basically for no reason. I was like, I think this might be some real anxiety. I basically just went through my college career, just kind of oh, this is it. But I never told anybody. I tried to kind of avoid it and ignore it. I kind of felt like I was crazy. So never said anything. And then, along comes Brendan and I still had a lot of that on and off throughout college and work. Then when we got engaged, it got really bad. And I was basically having panic attacks every single day.
Did you tell anybody?
Nope. I didn't tell a soul because I just was like,
I got to just make it go away. Right. Or something.
Yeah. That. And I think I wanted, I don't know. I wanted to believe that it wasn't real. And I felt I didn't know like how to go about asking for help because it wasn't, I mean, 10 years ago, it still really wasn't talked about much.
Yeah.
And so I just like didn't know the process of like, okay, there might be something wrong or like I need to reach out for help. And I still was in the mindset of like, if you went out for like therapy or medication, you're crazy. Like you have to be really bad to need that. And I was like, oh, I'm not that bad, you know, but we got married, moved to Virginia, still had it really bad. And I mean, I think my husband knew a little bit like that I struggled with anxiety just briefly. Yeah. I just didn't know that there would be a resource, I guess, for me to like outreach. And I still, even though I knew it was like anxiety and panic attacks, I didn't know how to verbalize it still really. So once we moved to Virginia, still had it really bad. And I think it got a lot worse there, honestly, because I didn't know how to cope or be an adult or do things on my own. I mean, I always had people around me that I knew. So you throw yourself into this military life where all of a sudden my husband's always gone.
Yeah.
And I don't know what to do with oh man, it was a rough 6 months. And I also kind of dealt with my first bout of a little bit of depression there. Not long. And it was kind of like day to day at random, but yeah, it's really started to come out there. And then we moved to Florida and at that point I was just ready to get out of Virginia because it was such a hard year. I was ready for him to not work quite as much and just get out of Virginia because I hated living there at that time. Because like the traffic, I just was like, I don't like this so far. And it was rough.
I wasn't a good fit for that area either.
No, some people love it. And I'm like, exactly. I'm not one of those people. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was very ready for the change to move to Florida. We moved there and I started to get a little better. I still struggled some, but then I got a job.
So this whole time you're just kind of trying to cope as best as you can. You're going through all these moves and these huge changes and not really telling anybody.
No, I'm physically ill. I'm sick. Like diarrhea, I'm throwing up. Didn't tell a soul.
And you're just like, just don't be anxious to
yeah,
yourself.
Yeah. And I was mad because I'm also like, I have my face. So I'm like praying. I'm like, why aren't you taking this away? Sort of thing. So It was a rough time. But once we moved to Florida, it actually got a lot better because I also started taking care of myself. So I lost a little bit of weight and I really liked my job. So it helped with the routine. We got our first dog. And so we were really settled in Florida and I really liked it. But then I obviously don't deal with change well. And so,
which is, so of course, be a military wife.
Oh, right. Yeah. That's the only thing that is like constant is the change. So towards the end of his flight school career, we didn't know where we were moving. It could have been Japan. He had to go to like the training squadron for F-18s. But after that, it was like, you can go to Japan or South Carolina. And I was like, in sheer panic for a couple of days. And it just hit me. And it was like literally right before school graduation. And I'm like physically ill because I'm like, what if we get Japan? I don't want Japan. I'm truly panicking over this. And the day of his flight school graduation, like my family was there and it was this whole thing because you like went to base, we ate brunch with everybody and they like gave this whole speech and then you like go to the ceremony. And my husband was like, you can't freak out if they say like our duty station on stage. And I was like, you're throwing a lot at me at once. But then like his, whoever the monitor was or CEO was like, oh yeah, you guys at South Carolina. I was like, thank God. And I just like felt like all the weight of the world off my shoulders. And I was like, you guys, we don't have to move to Japan. And so I was okay after that for a day. But then we moved to California. It started to get bad. Before that, it was really more situational. And there was usually like, I would obviously have anxiety panic attacks sometimes for no reason, but it really was like the change and trying to get used to something. Yeah, I could tie it to something. But then we moved to California and, I didn't have quite as much of a supportive community there. We were only there for barely a year, so didn't have quite as many friends, but I kind of just found myself like, it kind of started like in the summertime where I just would wake up and I just would be like shaking, heart racing, panicking. And it just like slowly, like in September, it just like kicked on. And it didn't stop. And then we had family visit us and friends visit us. And after that, I could not function during the day. It had never been that bad before. It was like a whole different world of like, there is like something wrong with me. And I'm also like health conscious or like have a lot of health anxiety. So like you think, oh, there's this random pain. There's like this, I have diabetes. I have this cancer. I have that cancer, and your mind just starts going. But I was really having panic attacks every day. I could not leave my house. I went to the grocery store and would have a panic attack. I couldn't sleep. I would wake up freezing cold because I couldn't eat. I would wake in the morning. I'd throw up my food because I couldn't eat.
Oh,
I mean, it was really, really bad. And we were having to fly to, for Thanksgiving that year, 2019, we flew to Kentucky with family, and I just was having a terrible time. And I already am an anxious traveler. Who would have thought? But it just in the day that we were flying home from Kentucky to California, I was throwing up in my in-laws sink because I just couldn't handle it. Oh, it was bad. December was I got to a point where I just kind of I think my body just shut down because I was becoming non-responsive. I did not know what was going on with me and couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, panic attacks 24/7, couldn't leave the house. And I just kept telling my husband, I'm like, I don't feel like myself. There's something wrong. I don't know what's wrong. I can't figure it out. And I finally opened up to a friend about it. We were going to go on a hike, and I got there and I just started bawling. I just started bawling. I'm like, I don't know what's wrong with me. And I just was talking about all these fears, and she was like, have you ever thought about maybe going to therapy or talking to a doctor? I was like, I don't know. I'm scared. I just was it just came to me where I was like, something needs to be done because I can't live like this anymore. I don't foresee myself living like this. It's a weird thing to describe because I had so much fear and panic and anxiety going through me every minute of every day, and then feeling depressed that it's this intangible pain that you cannot describe unless you
So is it something from the outside? Because it sounds like you were able to kind of keep it under control, and then it just started to be something that was kind of engulfing you. You couldn't control it anymore,
No.
Or hide it. It sounds like.
No, exactly. Yeah. It was becoming too big for me to handle. My husband at that point was getting out of flying F-18s, and he was switching over to drones. There was also this other big change coming. I just broke down to him one day and was crying. I'm like, I don't know what's going on with me. I cannot function. And so he was like, have you ever thought about going to therapy? This might be a good decision for you. And, there was one morning, got up, my husband went to work, sitting outside on our back patio, and he shut the sliding glass door and he accidentally locked me out.
Oh no.
But this was kind of a turning point because I think if this specific situation hadn't have happened, I wouldn't have asked for help. So he shut the glass door. I didn't realize for 20 or 30 minutes because I was just sitting there trying to enjoy some sun, and I was feeling okay for a morning. So I was trying to soak that in. And then I go to walk in and the door's closed, and I start laughing. And thankfully I had my phone and water with me. So I texted my husband. I was like, you locked me out of the house. And he was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I'll be home as soon as I can. La, la, la. But I was like, okay, I kind of took it as a sign from the Lord. Okay, I have literally nothing to do but call a doctor or a therapist right now because I need something else. I can't do this on my own anymore. It is beyond my capabilities of handling it. So I called a doctor, just a regular doctor's office, to try and make an appointment. I got one in for the next week, went to the doctor. I really thought I was going to pass out or puke or leave or something in the doctor's office because I was I cannot believe I'm about to face this fear of there's something wrong, or I feel like there's something wrong with me. Go to the doctor, and she was amazing. I really landed the last few years have landed some really, really great doctors. And she was very understanding. She let me vent, let me talk through all of my shaking anxiety and, my heart rate's so high. She was like, well, that, your heart rate's really high. That's why that's okay because you have an anxiety. But she talked to me about, medication and my options and what I wanted to do. And then she she was like, your homework is to call a therapist because she was like, it is statistically proven to help you in your mental health. And so I was really thankful that she wasn't just well, it's here, take this, you'll be fine. But she just really explained things to me. And I was like, okay, I felt like I kind of had a little bit of hope then. So we got a plan together. Yeah. And she was like, you'll come back in 6 weeks. Here's how the medication will work. And so, I started taking it there, and I had my first therapy appointment, after Christmas, after going home. And after my first therapy appointment, I felt like I could breathe for once because I was in my first therapy appointment crying. I'm like, telling her about my experience and like, I don't know how I got to this point. I don't know what's wrong with me. I don't know what's going on. I can't function. And I looked at her and I said, will I always feel like this? And she looked at me, she goes, no, you will not always feel like this. It is a temporary feeling. It feels like it's permanent, but this is temporary. And I was like, I just took this like deep breath and I was like, oh, thank God. And that was kind of like, all right, like I'm going to be able to close this chapter eventually. So long story short, yes. And it's been a long journey since then too. And it definitely has not, it's been not linear. It's not totally like,
for sure.
It's very up and down. And thankfully I'm doing so much better than I ever was. But it's been a very up and down journey, but that is how that happened. And then once I went and asked for help, I basically was like, I don't want to keep this to myself anymore. Told my family, told my husband, and just like basically shut it out online. Like, this is what's happening. I'm starting therapy, starting medication. And I was like, I'm going to write about this, like my first 6 weeks in therapy and what's going on. And that's when things just kind of took off because I had such a heartwarming response to it. And people that were like, thank you for writing about this. Like, I go through the same thing, but I didn't know that there was a name for it. I didn't know how to go about it. I didn't know other people felt this way. And I mean, I had people from all ages, from 15 to 75, messaging me and thanking me for the words that I was writing. I was like, okay, like, I feel like this is kind of an outlet for me. And, it just felt like it fit. Even though it was a hard thing, it felt like it fit.
Well, and your honesty is what made that happen because other people are feeling and going through the same thing and can't name it. Or I think there's a certain level of misery that we can get used to and not even realize that this is not normal and there's actually something that can help. I was talking to Erin before we started recording, and I've been getting some notes lately from people that they don't want to do this anymore. They are really struggling with military life. They're really having mental health issues. It's just kind of all falling apart. And for those of you that are going through that, I just hope that you can find some hope in this, that it doesn't have to be that way. And I love that you asked that question and she told you, it's not always going to be this way. Because that gives you some hope to hold on to. And so the importance of sharing your story and letting other people in a little bit just to kind of have that glimpse of what the journey is like and the help you can find, I think is just ever so important. Did you happen to see a military doctor, or was this somebody off base, or did you use any military resources at all, or was it all kind of like private practice?
It was all private practice. I did not. I have TRICARE Select or Standard, whatever you call it. So
where you get to choose.
Yes, I went off post or off base, and I have actually never seen a military doctor, but I just went off base like a regular civilian would do,
like a regular person.
Yeah.
Well, do you have any resource? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just saying, saw a therapist there, and then here the doctor that I see here, he's really great. And then I have a therapist who also, she talks to a lot of military spouses. And so she's knowledgeable about that, which is really great.
Yeah. That does help. Well, I was going to ask you, do you have any resources that have helped you other than, therapy and medication are huge, but is there anything else that you can point, spouses to get help with anxiety?
Yes. I actually just compiled this list today. And I have it on my Instagram page on highlights where it says MH resources. So mental health resources. I have a list of accounts. Obviously I shout out therapy. There is a therapy company, that I do some content for, called Telemind, and they are virtual online therapy, and they take TRICARE. So they're like a great place to start for therapy.
Oh, wonderful.
But there's also like a lot of Instagram accounts that are very knowledgeable, and they'll, but also personable, relatable, that'll take a topic and you're like, oh, that's how I feel. And it just makes you feel less alone, more connected. And, so there's a couple, there's, anxiety wellbeing. The handle is anxiety_wellbeing. It's an Instagram account. There is therapy with Maggie LPC. She's got some really good reels and, stuff just like on like health anxiety and symptoms. There's an account called health_anxiety. The anxiety doctor, she has a podcast that I actually really like. That's very realistic. And one thing I was worried about opening up about my anxiety is I heard this a lot before I opened up about it, but I was worried it would still happen, that a lot of people would be like, oh, you're fine. Don't worry about it. Like, you're just nervous. You're just anxious. Like, don't worry about it. You'll be fine. Some people ask me like why I didn't see like a religious or like a Christian counselor. And I was like, well, because I've had a lot of people in the church and like my Christian community growing up just been like, well, just pray about it. And I got really frustrated with that because I was like, I have prayed about it, but you forget that there's more to it, that there is a very physical component, and there are literally like chemical hormones in your brain that help you with your mental health. And so there's professionals for that specific thing. And that is what I needed. That's why I went like with just like a regular therapist. There's a couple of books that I've read. One that I really enjoy that that is not just like a day read. I've read it like well over a year, and it's called The Upward Spiral book. And it talks about anxiety and depression. It's by Alex Korb, his last name Korb. And he talks about this specific, like, the chemicals inside your brain, like serotonin, oxytocin, dopamine, what they are, how they work. And he just gives like straight bullet points of like, this is what they do. Here's how you increase them. Or like, here's proven methods of like how you increase them. But then he also goes into like, obviously this isn't just going to like, you work out once and you feel better and you're fine. But he gives like just really good, tangible examples of what to do, physical things to do. And he asks you questions. I found it really, really helpful. And he talks about a lot of different things that I had no idea existed, or like specific routines, and there's another book that I'm almost finished with it, I have read called, Unwinding Anxiety by, what's his name? It's like Judson Brewer, but that's really, really interesting too. And it talks about like habitual loops, like, mind loops, and it's just really interesting. So those are a few of the resources, but I did put all of those on my Instagram highlights if people wanted to go look at those.
And it sounds like some strategies to help you when you get into a cycle. You know, you can, well, it's like you said, you can pray, you can take your medication, you can go to therapy, but then having some like proven things to do when it hits you that you just didn't have those tools before.
Yeah. And it's nice because it's so, I guess, widely talked about now, and there's so many different accounts, is that not everyone has the same experience, and not what helps someone is not necessarily going to help someone else. So to have like multiple different viewpoints and different strategies, I think really helps too.
Yeah. And I think it's permission to, if you've always been fine or you've always struggled, but you're having issues, how important it is to seek help and not go through it alone. I just think that can't be overstated, because especially as military spouses, we're like, okay, other people have it harder. Other people have been this and done fine. What's wrong with me? And I've seen that a lot. I've done it myself. Let's be honest, and you just go, I just need to buck up. I've got this. And it's okay to say you need help.
Yeah. I used to really think that you had to be bad enough to need help. You need to reach this lowest point. And now that I was at that point, but I've, overcome a lot of that. I don't think there's ever a point that you get to where it's like, oh, I'm not here yet, so I don't need help. There's not a bar to measure it. Anyone and everyone could use a little extra help at times, or like extra support, especially going with through military life with changes and what's happening and timelines changing and things dropping, changing at the drop of hat, and deployments and TDYs. It's always good to have someone else on your side, like that doctor, that therapist, or someone else that is there to support you and help you through different struggles and help you to not just survive, but also thrive.
And you're not a failure if you need help.
Exactly.
It's such an important message. Well, as we get towards the end of our time talking, I did want to ask you to share, if you want, what's next for you. I know you have a new baby and possible move. So you have a lot of exciting things happening.
Yes, exciting and also frustrating. Yes, we're in a season of I am pregnant for the first time, and we're really very excited. But right now I don't know where I'm having this baby. I don't know if we're going to be in North Carolina, New Mexico, Arizona.
Yeah.
We're in a season of I don't know what's going to happen, and it's been very frustrating. But I'm just trying to laugh and go with the flow. Some days it works, some days it doesn't.
So relatable.
Yeah. Yep. So I just take things day by day and come as it goes. So,
well, Erin, if you could go back to that new military spouse who had no idea what she was doing and what was to come, and you'll probably tell her something different 10 years from now, but if you could go back now with what you know, what would you tell her?
oh my gosh. When I think of this new military spouse, I really think of myself because I was that military spouse that knew jack squat about military life. And I have two things. And one is that because military life is so all encompassing and it can really steal your own identity, I would say find something that is your own and that you enjoy, that you can take with you to different stations, different areas of life, that helps you to just be you and find joy for yourself. That, and also getting involved in your community and your military spouse community, because each time you move somewhere, or there's changes that happen, you really have to learn to build a community around you. It doesn't just happen. Sometimes people just kind of like randomly show up if like your husband has this friend and they have a spouse, but it takes a lot of courage and a lot of work to build a community, but it's so much better in the end when you reach out and you try and get involved in the spouse community, or like you just have a job in the outside community, you meet your neighbors, get involved, try and have like a little bit of your own life, because really me and my husband's lives are so different that it helps to have, a lot of like my own thing to be involved with the other spouses. Like I'm on the spouse club at the base club here, and that's helped. So get involved, try and meet other spouses. Make the most of where you're at, because it can suck. But if you let it suck, that's just all your mindset's going to be. But you can really work towards not letting it suck and, having a good time where you're at and meeting new people and having really great friends.
Awesome. That's great advice. Well, before we close, is there anything else you wanted to share that we didn't get to cover?
Nothing off the top of my head. I'm always an open book. So if anyone ever messages me and asks me questions, I will answer pretty much everything totally honestly. But I think if there's one thing that I've learned over, the 7 years of being a military spouse and with my mental health journey, is that you are never alone in your struggles. There's always someone else out there that can relate to you and help you through it and encourage you in whatever you're going through, because you are not alone. There's a community of people out there that want to support you. You're never alone in what you're doing.
That's a great reminder. Well, thank you, Erin, so much for coming on the podcast today and sharing your story.
I've had a great time. Anytime you want me back, I'll come back.
Oh, yes. We would love to have you back and get an update on this new baby and the move. So
on the baby and wherever we live.
Yes, we would love to stay in touch and have you back for sure. And everybody, remember, you can find Erin at The Short Wife all over the place, her website and on social media. I know that you guys are going to get so much out of what she shared, and I hope you'll share it with others too. If you know somebody that's struggling with anxiety or other mental health issues as a military spouse, just send this episode along to them, and I know it will help them so much. So everybody, thanks for listening. And remember, you are brave, you are strong, and you have got this. So have a wonderful week, and I will talk to you next time. Bye, Erin.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the MilSpouse Matters podcast. Connect with me at jen-mcdonald.com or on social media as @MilSpouseMatters. You can find even more military life support with my book, You Are Not Alone, Encouragement for the Heart of a Military Spouse, and my other podcast, The Christian MilSpouse. Love the show? Please subscribe and leave a 5-star review wherever you're listening, and then share it with someone else who could use it too. Until next time, have a great week.